Finance and Revenue Committee meeting to order at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Myself, Brian McGinnis, the chair, Nicole Shimoni, and Brian Travis. Are there any comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding any items not on the agenda? No, I'm telling you, come on down. Yeah, you can come on down.
Okay, sorry. I have a question about our property tax mailings. And indeed, when was the decision made to shift the collection of property tax from the county, who used to mail them out, to the borough? We know that. I'm sorry. Back in December. I checked the minutes of the meetings and I couldn't find anything. Was there something in December?
So back in December of 2023, we approved a contract with Muni Billing to provide our tax billing services, shifting it from the county to the borough.
And was there a monetary savings on that from what the county charged us to what Muni charges us?
The savings that we were recognizing was about $4,000.
I have not received my tax bill yet, and I have received my county tax bill. And in the past, those tax bills came within a week or at most 2 of each other. So my concern is, when will these tax bills be mailed? And it is urgent in terms of the discount period.
The tax bills are scheduled to go out by the end of next week.
All right, thank you. Let's move to item number 3, discussion items, the December 2023 and January 2024 financials.
Good evening. So if we could start with page 2 of the report, please. Looking at the December 2023 cash balances, we started the month of December with $19,422,419 in cash. We brought in $4,004,328. We spent or transferred between funds $4,670,764, and this left us with an ending balance across all funds of $18,755,983. Moving over to page 3, the budget to actual summary by department for the year ended December 31st, 2023. We booked actual revenues of $38,761,800. This is offset by actual expense of $34,516,584. And this leaves with a net income across all funds of $4,245,216. Of this amount, a net loss is attributable to the general fund in the amount of $127,746, a net income of $351,666 to the fire fund, $2,019,548 to wastewater, $605,245 to the parking fund, $117,140 to liquid fuels, and $1,279,364 to the stream protection fund. Looking at the financial results for the year ended 2023, it's important to note that these monthly reports that you have before you are on a cash basis. This means that we recognize revenues when we receive them and we book expenses when we pay invoices. This is a little different than accrual accounting. Generally, in accrual accounting, you book revenues when you incur them and expenses when you incur them. Why do we do this? So we're following generally accepted auditing standards where we have to account for 2 different types of funds. Our governmental funds, which consist of our general fund, the recreation, our fire, and our stream protection and liquid fuels, and our 2 enterprise funds or business type funds, which are wastewater and parking. The governmental funds focus mainly on short-term results or our yearly results, which is the services that we provide and how we pay for those services. And the business type funds charge a fee to the users for the services that we provide, and this fee that we charge should cover most or all of the expenses that we are providing. So as I mentioned on page 3 of the report, the general fund on a cash basis did have a net loss for the year of $128,000. This is mainly attributable to the administration department. If you look at the bottom line, total expenses net of capital were over budget by $559,000. And this is basically 4 different reasons for why this happened. So back in 2022, we had a principal payment that was due on our 2012 C, our fire truck series. This payment was not made in 2022 due to a bank error. We were aware of that as well as the auditors, and we worked with the bank to correct that. That payment was since made in 2023, but was not budgeted for. So there was a $205,000 principal payment that was not budgeted for. Also, we had prepayments that were made on our workers' comp policy. If you look across all the funds in the general line, in their line items, they will be over budget for 2023.
Barb, were we charged any fees as a result of the banking error?
No, there was no fees. Everything was returned to the bond investors, and everything was made right. It was an issue with the bank. So we have those payments that are normally, they're deducted ACH. We had the money in the account, and when we were going through the process of the audit, we realized that that payment was never deducted for 2022. And, we got in contact with the bank and we went back and forth and it was rectified.
Thank you.
On the revenue side, we did not receive the second payment for the PHMIC refund. So that line item is $152,000 under budget, again, on a cash basis. We did receive the payment in January of 2024. And our real estate liened taxes, deed transfer, and local services, again, all on a cash basis, are under budget by $252,000. Looking at the police department, total expenses are 3% over budget or $289,000 over budget. This is due to salaries, workers' comp, enterprise lease payments, fuel, and SPCA. Moving over to the housing department, their revenues were $235,000 over budget for the year. Expenses were under budget by $136,000, and that's mainly due to salaries and medical insurance. Within the IT department, expenses are under budget by $56,000. That's due to capital spending that was not, there was some savings within that. Within the public works department, revenues are over budget by $31,000 and expenses are under budget by $524,000, mainly in service contracts, trash, and capital expense. In the recreation department, revenues are $45,000 over budget and expenses are under budget by $129,000 due to capital expenses, park maintenance, and the restaurant festival. Moving over to the fire fund, net of the restricted reserve line item, the fund is over budget by $36,000 in the expenses. This is due to utilities being over budget by $97,000 and equipment repairs by $40,000. Wastewater, sewer revenues are over budget by $889,000. This offsets a lot of the expense overages that you'll see within that department. Overtime, office supplies, service contracts, engineering, sludge, fuel, heating oil, sulfur, application fees, sewer billing, generator maintenance, and emergency contingency. The parking fund, the revenues are over budget by $406,000, and this offsets expense overages in overtime, office supplies, postage, enterprise, admin, bank fees, legal, and parking garage maintenance. Moving over to the liquid fuels fund, traffic control and road maintenance both are over budget by $60,000. However, that is offset by the road paving project coming in under budget of $141,000. Stream protection fund is $397,000 over budget in revenue. Expenses are under budget by $883,000, and that's because a majority of the capital projects that were budgeted in 2023 will be completed in 2024. Some positive notes. We did really well in interest income in 2023. In the general fund, we booked $117,000 in interest just by making a few changes to the way we manage our cash by putting it in Pliget and making sure that it's within, certain funds where you can't take the money out of. And we ended the year with $2.2 million in the general fund. So for the first time in a long time, we didn't have to come before council to borrow money to fund the first 3 months. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
I just have one question. I realize that the admin budget is admin for all the departments. Is there a reason why we don't have an admin budget for each department? It would provide a little bit more clarity in terms of where the money's going from the budget to actual, so on and so forth.
So the admin department is basically covering administration, which covers the borough manager's office as well as the finance department. And that's, we don't break up like the majority of, bond payments or some of the bigger things. But if you look under each department, there are, their expenses are divided among each department. And if you want, offline, I could go through it with you to kind of show you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any public comment? Seeing none, let's move to item B, the 2023 fourth quarter pension financial report.
Do you want to go over January 2024? I don't have a lot to report on it, but
We could do that.
okay. So if you go to page 2, please, the January 2024 cash balances. We started the month with $18,298,359 in cash. We brought in $2,133,386. We spent or transferred between funds $691,020, and this left us with an ending cash balance of $19,747,25 across all funds. Moving over to page 3, please. The budget to actual summary by department for the year ended January 31st. We booked actual revenues of $3,796,586. This is offset by actual expense of $3,728,169. This leaves us with a net income of $68,417 across all funds. And of this, $657,855 is booked as a net loss within the general fund. Just the financial highlights for the month. January is typically a very light month for revenues. There's not too much coming in. We're typically relying on our earned income tax and our budgeted transfers between funds. At this point in time, line items should have about 92% of their budgets remaining. Our real estate taxes, again, as I had talked under public comment, we are expecting to mail them out by the end of next week.
Thank you. Any questions about the January 2024 financials?
No questions.
I have a question about the real estate taxes. With the changeover, my understanding is that where some mortgage companies are set up to automatically pay, that actually has to be switched over. Like once you receive your taxes, you have to call and switch over and get your mortgage company set up to pay with the new system. So my question is, if there are going to be, like, as Ann mentioned, there are discounts and things like that. Like, are we going to make sure that people aren't penalized, or people are going to be penalized if for some reason they get it and they have, to work on getting this movement changed, or how's that going to work?
So the discount period is April 15th. We do have information on our website, and we will honor payments if they come in. We're not going to cut them off April 16th if a payment comes in. We will probably give them a little bit of a grace period, but, we are working with the mortgage companies. We have gotten a lot of phone calls where, they're used to kind of a different process, and we're doing our best to work through that and make sure, that we'll get them the information as quickly as we can so that, of course, they can, process the payments to us. But yeah, we recognize that this is a new method for everyone, and to offer a little bit of grace.
Thank you.
Any public comment? All right, now let's move to the 2023 fourth quarter pension financial report.
Yes, our pension financial advisors meet with the pension committee quarterly, the fourth Monday here at Borough Hall at 3:00. It's a public meeting, so anybody can come and hear how our pensions are doing. I'm going to briefly go over, I won't spend very much time at all on this because I'm not a financial expert, but mainly this report is composed of overall market conditions in the first half of the report, and then the second two quarters of the report talk about how each fund performed. And the funds are generally invested in the same blend of investment vehicles in the same proportions. About 40% of 40 to 60% is in equity, 10 to 15% in international equity, 30 to 40% in fixed income, and the remainder is in cash. Overall, in 2023 was a good year. We were up 15% roughly in both funds, the police pension fund and the non-uniform funds. The police pension fund has roughly twice the amount of assets as the non-uniform fund. Police pension fund closed the year at around $46 million. 2023 was, out of the last 4 years, we had 3 good years and 1 stinker in there. 2022 was brutal. Both funds lost around 15, 16% in 2022, but we gained it back in 2023. And that was mostly because the fourth quarter in 2023 was really, really good. Brian, you probably know more than I what was going on in fourth quarter, but we saw quarterly growth of around 9% in both of the pension funds. So that's what really helped us get over the finish line in a really good position at the end of 2023. If you take the 4-year performance, we are up around 6.75%, 7% annual average over the last 4 years, which is slightly beating our assumed rate of return over that time period. So I'm really happy with the relationship. I'm learning a lot about investing, learning a lot about how our portfolio is being managed. If you want more specific information from the professionals, we can have Bruce or Michael come and talk directly to the committee, or you all are welcome to join us at those quarterly meets.
I think that would be great to meet with yeah.
Sean, I just had one comment here, and I'm glad, Jeff, you put that up here. So if everyone could take a look at the market value, but then look at the fee schedule. So on the left-hand side where it says 0.0% of assets is the fee, it's like, I think the total stock market's like 0.04%. But if you look at the estimated fee, I mean, it's such disproportionate compared to the other funds that have less than assets. So what that means is on this left-hand side, that fee schedule shows these expense ratios are really, really high for the most part. And overall, I think it's something along the lines of 62% of the fund, the assets within the pension are actively managed funds. I think that's a little high. We only have one index fund, the total stock market index, and that does hamper growth overall. It takes away, erodes growth to have that much in actively managed funds. And that could impact us and what we pay for our MMO. And then also the returns for the employees and the retirees as well. So that's something that we can consider. And I think, Jeff, I sent Bill something. If you could show that chart. If you could blow that up here. So as you can see, the expense ratios, the 1 year, the return 2023, the 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year. So what I did is I looked at the funds that we own. So we have the Delaware small cap. Look at that expense ratio. But then I did a comparable to the Vanguard small cap index, lower expense ratio. And then over time, you can see the return is greater. The Dodge and Cox International Fund, you can see their higher expense ratio. And then you could look at the comparable to the Total International Stock Index Fund, lower expense ratio. But if you look at these returns, I mean, they're almost comparable, but you're saving on expenses. And that eats away at the investment return. And you could see that it's consistently over time, with the exception of some of these bond funds at the bottom here. And I think that we need to move towards a more indexed approach, in my opinion. And, you know, if we can't have that by the end of the first quarter, then I believe that we should put this out for another RFP.
Brian, can I ask a question? I'd be curious to see, you know, you've done that chart here, like what would be an indexed fund, like an international index fund? What would be the comparable fund that you would think that we would invest in to bring down the expense ratio and bring up the return? Do you have one that?
Well, that would be one. That would be it. If you look here, that's the Dodge and Cox International Fund. That's an actively managed fund. If you can see that expense ratios, what, nearly 6 times?
Yes. So my question is then what would do you have other funds that are in mind that you think?
Well, I would mainly go towards a more of an indexed approach. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having actively managed funds within a portfolio, but to have 62% in an overall portfolio is very high. I mean, it's kind of staggering to me. There's 2 obscure funds, the Delaware Small Cap and the Delaware Diversified Income Fund. I don't know how they were chosen, but you know, I don't know. I don't know if there's any other fees or commissions that were being charged, but I think that, you know, I would feel comfortable that if this doesn't change by the end of the first quarter, that we should put out an RFP and look at, you know, reputable fund managers that are going to lead to more savings over time.
I think it'd be good to have RBC come in and talk to us, and we can talk to them. We have some suggestions. I mean, just based on the 1 year, and I think that S&P had like a ridiculous record last year. We actually missed out on a lot of growth because of this portfolio.
Yeah,
I agree with what Brian's saying.
I agree. It's worth a better understanding. I mean, I'm assuming that these managers are trying to do some kind of a balanced approach. And sometimes when you do that, you know, certain funds perform better than others. And that's because we're hedging our bets that if the economy shifts, the other funds will do better than that fund. But I don't know what they're thinking, and I would be curious to understand that as well. I don't know if expense ratios are higher because there's less money in them, et cetera, et cetera. So it's worth understanding.
So if we could take that recommendation back to RBC, that'd be great. Any public comment? All right. With that, item number C, explanation of the Westchester Police Department Fleet Vehicle Purchasing Plan.
Hi, Josh Lee. I'm the police chief. Thanks for having me. My whole point here in maybe this 2-minute overview is to twofold: to thank the other committees and Public Works last night there was a recommendation to go ahead and buy 2 police vehicles this year as planned for 2024. But to the finance committee, I wanted to give maybe 1,000-foot overview on how vehicle purchasing works, a little bit of a plan for 24 and 25. So when I come back to you in late 2024, maybe you'll remember some of this conversation and we can build upon it. But buying police cars isn't quite as simple as buying a regular car, station wagon for the family, et cetera. We have to order them ahead of time. There's a window in which we can order vehicles from the manufacturer. Once those vehicles come in, we equip those vehicles with things that make them unique to police cars, places for the prisoners to go, lights, siren, signs on the side that say police, all that type of stuff. So if we use rough numbers, a police car costs about $50,000 and the upfitting costs about $20,000. So obviously we want to plan when we do these things. So there's a long history, unfortunately, going back to about 2020, where our fleet has decreased in roadworthiness because of decisions that we were forced to make budget-wise with COVID and with 2020. We skipped buying vehicles. We used to buy about 3 vehicles a year. In 2020, we didn't buy any vehicles. That set us back. And then since 2020, we've only bought 2 police car vehicles. And when I'm talking about police cars, I'm talking about the cars that the officers in uniform are driving around in. So we've gotten now 3 years post 2020, and we're in a bit of a pickle that I'm trying to plan better for. So if everything goes smoothly tomorrow and the next week, we'll place an order for 2 police vehicles for this year, and then we'll upfit those vehicles. At the end of this year, what I would like to do is have a conversation about buying or maybe even ordering vehicles for 2025 in 2024, so that we're not waiting around until delivery. In other words, these 2024 vehicles will be delivered, if we're lucky, sometime in July-ish, probably not until October-ish. So my plan would be to then come back to you in late 2024 and say, hey, let's order 2 vehicles ahead of time now for 2025. And let's then in mid 2025 order 2 additional vehicles for a total of 4 vehicles in 2025, along with those upfitting costs. And that'll get us back hopefully on track to where then we can talk about moving forward from there. Buying 3 vehicles a year instead of 2 or instead of 4, depending how you want to look at it. The benefit to staggering those purchases would be that we're not bringing them all in at the same time. Leasing of vehicles is a whole other discussion that I don't want to waste any time here with. But when we order them, whether they're lease or purchase, it takes time to get them in. We can't get them all upfitted in the blink of an eye. So if we stagger those purchases just a little bit, it may help financially by putting off lease payments for a number of months, but it'll also help us planning wise to make sure that when we're getting the vehicles, we're actually using the vehicles rather than just having the vehicles sit, paying for them and not using them. I probably skipped over something that I wanted to mention, but I really do look forward to being able to come back to you later in the year and working on a plan moving forward. And I hope that gives you some insight on what we're doing for this year as well.
Thank you, Chief. And I believe there were 2 vehicles at $50,000 a piece, correct?
Yeah, that's about what they cost this year. In fact, the latest I heard is that Ford does not have that exact number yet, what they cost, but last year was 49,000, and they're on pace to be about the same this year.
Great, thank you. Any questions on the dais?
No questions.
Any public comment?
I
Oh,
was
go
just
ahead.
going to say, I mean, knowing the way the car market has turned since COVID, I think the fact that you're thinking about planning and staggering it out and all of those things, you know, knowing that there's a lag in the car market in general from what I've seen, I think that's good that you're thinking that way. So thanks.
And I hope that it works out well, but thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any public comment? All right, seeing none, let's move to item D, a RFP for health insurance. So I'll bring that up since I mentioned that to Sean. It's my understanding that we have never put out an RFP for health insurance. Is that correct? Within the history of the borough? To the best of your knowledge, and how long has that been? If you don't mind.
20 plus years.
20 plus years. Okay. So with that, I do think that it's something that we should look into, put out an RFP, see what the market dictates. That way we could still, you know, get quality health insurance, maybe at a better price. Any comments on the dais?
Yeah, would we include in the RFP the current provider?
Yeah.
Yeah, any process is open to our current providers. I think what I wanted an opportunity to for the committee to know is that not all requests for proposals, not all services are created equal. So how do you get a good estimate of what it would cost to provide health insurance to our group? Well, first of all, you have to identify the group, and you got to quantify the group, and the characteristics of that group matter. So all of that information is to be compiled to go out. Then there's a decision to be made about what breadth of coverage do you want the providers to provide you with. And it may not be a traditional bid kind of proposal arrangement. It may be something that we have to go shop, or maybe that we work through a broker. And then once we get estimates back in, any decision to make any changes has to also address the issue that we have. We really have 3 employment groups in the borough. 2 of them are represented by unions, and 1 is not, and they're roughly equal parts. And also, many of our retired police officers are also on health insurance too. So the number of people that, this isn't to dissuade the decision, but the number of the people that this affects is much greater than the number of current employees. So I just say all that to say it is an undertaking. It's not something we're going to be able to come back to you right away on. I'm glad we're talking about it in February instead of October, because there was no way we could make a change then. This is the right time to talk about it. But let us put our heads together, me and John Krauser and Barb, and give you a comfortable estimate of the time frame to find out what other vendors would offer and how we could structure this sort of ask.
And Sean, with that, would we, since it's on discussion, would we be able to put that on the work session, move it to that if we decide to do that? That way we could at least get the ball rolling?
I don't think it's, whether council instructs the staff to do it next week or not, we will start working on at least understanding the scope of what we need to accomplish to make that happen, and we can come up with a calendar and a time frame. We can start working on that right now, since that's something it sounds like the committee's interested in.
Any questions about that? Any further questions?
Are there any downsides?
I mean, it would ultimately be up to the market, right? What the market dictates, what the price is, the coverage. You mentioned the 3 groups, administrative, 2 unions. I mean, Barb, if you have any comment about that?
It's certainly something we can do all of our research, and I don't see a problem with being able to do that. But like Sean said, I think we'll need some time. So.
Okay. No,
One thing I'm really happy with the way the borough does their health insurance for employees. First of all, it's great benefits. We really have great health benefits here, and there's very few employers that do that. So it's a great marketing tool, and we want to bring in people to work here. The other thing is that we're all on the same, regardless of what union you're in or non-union, we're all on the same plan. And that's very good. That's a very good thing. That's one of the few things where we have workplace compensation and benefit parity amongst union and non-union employees. That's not something I'd want to jeopardize going forward. That's a good thing.
No, I'm just going to say thank you. Yeah, and I think that's fine. But again, we don't know what's out there. Any public comment? Okay, let's look at action items. Approve the sale of a coin counter by Municipid.
So as you may recall, last year we purchased a new coin counter because the one we had died. So we're just looking for approval to put that on muni bid for sale.
I don't have any objection. Any comments on the dais?
No.
Okay, we could call that a 3-0.
All right,
Any
thank you.
public comment? All right. Let's look at item B, approve the 2023 capital expense reconciliation and allocate year-end cash for 2023 capital expenditures not included in the 2024 budget.
And so this attachment that you have before you is pretty big. What I did was put together all of the various capital projects that we had in the budget for 2023. Within the general fund, we had 32 projects that were budgeted using ARPA funding. Of those 32 projects, 30 were completed, and we have 2 projects that are still in process, as well as the Green Light Go that has been a multi-year grant-related project that was not part of the 2023 budget, but we are incurring expenses, which we will be reimbursed for, most of them. The one project that was not completed in 2023 was the recreation planning for the master park plan. We do not need to allocate any of the year-end 2023 cash for this because we did have a cash reserve in the 2024 budget. The 2 projects that we are asking for is the High and Minor project, as well as what I just spoke about, the Green Light Go. So the ask of the committee tonight is to allocate year-end cash that we had that we realized at the end of 2023. We're asking for $109,000 of general fund money to pay for the High and Minor project, which we are looking for $85,000 for that and $24,000 for Green Light Go associated costs. We are asking for $102,629 from the fire fund to pay for the brush truck that was approved last year, but we have not yet received it, so we still need to pay that. $130,007 from the parking fund to pay for the garage payment technology that was authorized for flash parking, as well as the water repair for the Bicentennial Garage, and $465,000 in stream protection to pay for BMP projects that were budgeted in 2023 but were not completed. So we would like to complete those in 2024.
Thank you. Any comments?
No.
And I just want to add that something to what Barbara said, the reason we're doing it this way and the reason we're going to be coming to the Finance Committee and Council every February is to make sure that just because something was budgeted in the prior year and we didn't spend the money doesn't mean you can spend the money next year. You got to get approval from council to do it. Our project managers in-house have to know what they need, what they didn't budget for when we were talking about budget. And they need Barb's approval. Barb gets to check the cash reserves and say, hey, can we actually spend this money? Is it gonna hurt us? Did we actually end the year with enough cash left over to pay for these things? So I thought we need to put those safeguards into that process rather than just spending the money. So that's what we're doing. And hopefully, as we get better with project delivery, as we get better with budgeting, this becomes a very short conversation. I think in past years, we had a lot more projects that we were talking about because they didn't make it in the budget and we weren't getting things done, but we're getting more things done. And we're talking about what money we're going to need the next year in our budget process, which is where we should be having that conversation, but we're still not 100% there.
Go ahead.
So just to make sure I understand, because you mentioned the garage work and I think that's related to the readers for the license plates. And so I guess my question is, has this money, I thought that was done already. But maybe I'm confused. Is this money that you're asking for, some of it already been spent or the work's been done and we're just getting a bill and we just it's a little bit of a process because it was supposed to be done in December, or how does that break down?
So these were projects that we had budgeted for in the 2023 budget. and they were not completed. So they should have been part of the 2024 budget, but based upon the work that we did, to get where we were in 2024, we thought that those projects would be completed by year end, and they weren't. So what we're asking for is, since they're not in the 2024 budget, we're asking that we use our year end 2023 to complete, to pay for the remainder of those projects. And in your point for the parking stuff, yes, those projects were started. But again, since those balances weren't included in the 2024 budget, we need authorization to be able to spend the rest of that money.
Okay, so the work kind of was stopped until you got this approved, and then you would keep going with the work.
I
It's
mean, it
not-
wasn't stopped. It's been, an ongoing completion process. Especially to the best of my knowledge, I believe that they started the work on the garages probably in the late fall, maybe the November, December timeframe. Maybe I'm off on that. But again, the point I'm trying to make is I don't have the authorization to write checks for things that aren't included in the 2024 budget. And I have to come before you as the council to be able to spend that money. And that's what I'm asking for tonight.
Just one more clarify,
Sure.
but you might have a bill in front of you for some of this already that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we know how much we've already kind of spent versus not?
So that's kind of what I tried to do in those boxes right there. So that what you're looking at in front of you, we have for the two projects, mainly talking about parking, we had $247,000 that was budgeted for capital projects. We've spent $117,000, so we're looking for the authorization to spend the $130,000 that's left.
So some of that 130,000 was already spent in maybe January or something. Is that kind of what you're saying? You've got a bill in front of you that you got to pay?
Yes, we do have bills for these things. Yes, they have not been paid yet,
No,
but we
Nicole,
are,
It's the 247.
was the total.
Expense, we paid 117 and the remainder was 130. They're asking for a 130 allocation to finish the project.
Yeah, I understand that the ask is the 130. I'm just trying to understand, are you asking for money that we've already spent? Or are you asking for money that then we will go spend to finish these projects?
I'm asking for the money to pay the remainder of the projects.
So we've already spent it.
Yeah, like with the garage payment technology, those pay stations and gates are installed. And we paid 50% down to place the order, have the equipment be delivered. It got delivered, but we installed it in January instead of, we thought we were going to get it done before the end of the year. So now that it's installed and operational, we have an invoice to pay the other half.
Okay, that's all I was trying to understand, is this money that we're like, oh, we still want to finish the project and spend this additional money that we have left over, we've already spent it. So if we said no, that would be a problem because we've already spent it. Yeah. Okay, that's what I just was trying to understand. Thank you. I'm good.
Thank you. And we could call this, any public comment? We could call this a 3-0 decision. Thank you, Barb, for that clarification. So the following, item C, purchasing approval, looks like items 1 through 10. If you just want to briefly go over them, Barb, thank you.
So I just want to make a comment before I go through these purchasing approvals. So there's 2 items on here. So the typical process for when purchases come through, a PO is submitted. And that comes to my attention. And I go through them and I make sure that, anything over $10,000 that meets the criteria for the purchasing policy comes before council for approval. We typically do not approve any POs until we get the authority that we can spend that money. However, since there was not a meeting in January, there's 2 items, the Motorola for the police department and the Cummings, the $14,000 was for the fire department. Those were critical things that needed to be approved. Motorola was for cloud services for the police department. We didn't want any interruption in services. And the $14,000 was for a fire truck repair that was necessary to, be in active duty. So I just wanted to put that out there before, but I'll go through each one real quickly. The first one is $12,100 for USA LCL. This is for Delpac 1000, which is used for phosphorus removal in the wastewater plant. This is a contract that was approved by council, which expires March 31st, 2024, and it's for 0.275 per pound, and we are asking for 44,000 pounds of that. Moving on to the next one, 26,484 for CDW. This is for our Barracuda, which is advanced threat protection. This is a CoStars vendor. Moving over to the next one, we have 3 purchase orders that were submitted by the wastewater department for the purchase of 5 pumps at both plants, as well as a pump and grinder and control panel. And the total of this is $128,937.14. The next purchase is $13,049.50 to Univar Solutions. This is for soda ash, which increases the pH of acidic water. This is through an approved Borough Council contract, which expires on March 31st. The purchase request is for 25 tons at $528.98 per ton. The next request is for Watch Keep for $17,259.84. This is for disaster recovery. This is the first payment request. This is a semi-annual payment, and they are a CoStars vendor. The next item is $18,750 for Motorola Solutions. I already talked about this. This was for cloud services within the police department. The next purchase is $11,614.39. This is for Civic Plus. This is for our website for the hosting and support, and this is a 4-year contract. The next purchase is $14,981.89 to Cummins Sales. This is for the fire department for an equipment repair for engine 52. And then the last one is a jet vac for from US Municipal Services. This is in the 2024 budget. We had $390,000 budgeted. This will be shared across 3 funds. 1/3 will be paid by wastewater, 1/3 by the general fund, and 1/3 by the stream protection fund. And all of these purchases, they are budgeted. We're just asking for the approval to meet the purchasing policy requirements.
Thank you, Barb. Any questions regarding these purchases? Any public comment? Okay, I don't see any objection. They're approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item D, the December 2023 minutes. With that, Sean, since I'm the only person here, should these minutes in general go to, I guess, next week for all of, thank you. So that'll be approved on the work session? Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification. Item E, approve the project bid for the Taylor Run digester gas equipment installation, Allen Myers. That is $189,555.
Good evening, Sean Mitchell, wastewater director. Last year we had, actually over the last couple of years, we've tried to get this job done. It's the digester methane gas pipe and safety equipment. It went over bid each time. Last year we put it out twice. The second time there was no bids, so we were able to negotiate prices. This year it came, or at the end of the year, it came in at $189,555 to Allen Myers. It is a safety thing, and it is in the budget for this year.
Thank you. Just curious, what was the original bid in the bids that were, for the ones that were rejected?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. It was back in August.
Thank you. Any questions? Any public comment? See no objections, approve item E. Number 5, any other business? Barb?
Business. So we had a request that we weren't able to get onto the agenda on Friday afternoon. This is a request to purchase 4 trucks for the fire department for the command staff. It's 4 trucks plus the upfitting. The cost of the trucks is $202,800, and the upfitting costs is, sorry, I don't have the total in front of me, but the total purchase is $265,956.74. They're looking to purchase the trucks from Whitmore Auto Group. They are a CoStar's vendor, and then the upfitting will be through 10-8 Emergency. And then there's a purchase for CDW for some radio equipment maintenance. These are all in the 2024 budget. So they're looking for approval so that, as Chief Lee mentioned, to make sure that they're getting the equipment that they need on a timely basis with the way vehicle sales are. And if you have any questions, Justin's here.
One point of clarification, the total number for completion is 335,428.04. The budget's 375, Sean? I think is what the contracted budget amount was. So that's funded by the borough as well as the 5 municipalities that pay into the fire protection contracts. As Chief Lee mentioned, it is incredibly difficult to get vehicles. You see that with the brush truck. The brush truck we ordered the chassis for in July of last year. It's still not here. It's supposed to be here next week. I'll believe it when it comes off the truck at the dealership. We were fortunate enough to be able to find 4 of the same vehicles on a lot at Whitmore Auto in Mount Joy, PA, and they will honor the CoStar's price. They actually even did us the favor of holding them for us until we could get approval to buy them. So they're not going to sell them out for under us. We are probably anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks after a PO is approved for the upfitting equipment that Barb spoke about to 10-8 EVS. That's also CoStar's price. And then the CDWG is for laptops for the vehicles. The County of Chester gives an allotment to emergency services organizations. Because of the size of the fire department, we actually exceed that allotment. So for 3 of the 4 vehicles 10 years ago, we had to buy our own computers. We've kept those computers running for 10 years. And I don't know if any of you have a computer that's over 10 years old, but it's incredibly difficult to keep it running. So that will be for the replacement of them as well.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Any public comment? Any objections? Seeing none, purchase granted. Any other business? All right, seeing none, let's adjourn at 7:38 p.m.